They say storms expose the truth, but the one that tore through my family that night revealed more than I was ready for. The wind screamed outside the glass walls of my father's lakeside estate in Vermont, but it didn't hold a candle to the chaos brewing inside. We were seated around a table that had hosted decades of celebrations, negotiations, and secrets. But tonight, it was the battleground. My father slid a thick envelope across the polished oak toward my younger brother, Ryan. "Congratulations," he said with a proud nod. "You've earned it." That envelope wasn't just paper, it was power. The deed to the villa, the company, the offshore accounts, everything, all handed to him. I sat motionless across from them, 34 years old, but suddenly feeling like a scolded child. My palms were cold, pressed against my thighs as I struggled to hold my face together. Ryan couldn't even look at me. His mouth was a hard line, eyes fixed on the table. My stepmother played with her necklace, pretending not to see me shatter. Then came the dagger. My father turned, eyes sharp, mouth curling. "And you, Ava," he said with a bitter laugh. "You were always the dreamer. Too soft, too emotional to survive in the real world." My heart dropped into a pit of silence. There were 4 others in the room: my father, Ryan, my stepmother, and the family attorney. But I'd never felt so isolated. He shoved papers toward the man in the suit. "Let's make this official." "Dad," I whispered, barely able to speak. "Please don't." He rolled his eyes. "Spare me, Ava, you chose to leave. You wanted to find yourself, remember?" His fingers mimicked air quotes like they were knives. "You walked away from your family to work in some clinic overseas. For what? No title, no money? Just wasted years." "You never asked why I left," I murmured. "You never cared." "And I still don't," he snapped. "Ryan stayed. Ryan was loyal." I shook my head. "He showed you what you wanted to see, but he lied to you." That made my father laugh, harsh and hollow. "That's jealousy talking." The attorney, Mr. Whitman, a silver-haired man with nerves showing through his tight grip on the folder, suddenly cleared his throat. "Actually," he said, "before anyone signs, there's something you should hear." My father narrowed his eyes. "What now?" Mr. Whitman met his gaze with quiet defiance. "There's a sealed amendment to the will, added 6 years ago, at your late mother's request." My heart skipped. My grandmother, the only one who ever truly saw me, she used to say I had more strength in silence than most people had in their loudest moments. My father's face twisted. "What amendment?" he snapped. Calmly, Mr. Whitman opened the leather folder and pulled out a faded yellow document. This was filed during her last notary appointment. Her instructions were crystal clear. It was to remain sealed unless you ever attempted to disinherit Ava. My father scoffed. "She had no right, no authority." "She did," Mr. Whitman cut in, now firmer. "She maintained 51% ownership of Harborist Holdings until her death. You never contested that. Legally, she had every right." Ryan shifted, visibly uncomfortable. My stepmother froze, her fingers still glued to the diamond pendant she always wore when she needed to feel in control. Mr. Whitman looked at me. "Miss Ava, would you like to read it, or shall I?" I didn't move. My eyes were locked on the envelope in Ryan's hand, the one that suddenly didn't mean much anymore. "Read it," I said. He unfolded the page. "In the event that my granddaughter, Ava Whitmore, is deemed unworthy by her father, I hereby grant her full authority over my share of Harbor Crest Holdings to be enacted immediately. All voting rights shall transfer to her. This clause overrides all previous ownership or decision-making agreements concerning the company or family estate." The only sound was rain, now softer against the windows, as if even the storm had paused to listen. "What the hell does that mean?" my father growled. "It means," Mr. Whitman said, turning to me, "your daughter now holds the majority. Nothing you sign today can change that." My father shot to his feet, the chair screeching behind him. "This is insane. She doesn't even understand the business." I stood, calm and unshaken. Maybe not your version of it, I said, voice steady, but I know how to lead, how to build without destroying, how to protect what matters. I never needed your approval. Then I looked to Mr. Whitman. Let's move forward. We've got a company to run. Ryan didn't speak. My stepmother's mouth opened, then closed again. And my father, he never sat back down. What happened next silenced even him, but he didn't say a word. Just stood there, silent, stiff, like a statue crumbling from the inside out. The room pulsed with a heavy stillness, thick enough to smother. My father remained upright, lips pressed into a hard, unforgiving line. His jaw was clenched so tightly I could see the muscle twitching in his temple. His knuckles were bone-white, gripping the back of the chair he'd shoved away like it might hold him up. And then I saw it. Something I never thought I'd witness in his eyes. Fear. Not the loud, flailing kind that lashes out. No, this was quieter, deeper. The kind of fear that comes when the foundation you built your identity on begins to crack. Please sit, I said gently. There was no venom in my voice. I wasn't trying to humiliate him. I wasn't here for revenge. All I had ever wanted was something I'd been denied my whole life. Dignity, but still, he didn't move. The silence stretched until Ryan finally spoke. "This isn't right," he blurted, looking around the room for someone, anyone, to agree. "She left. She didn't want this. She ran off to help people or whatever." "I built homes for women escaping abuse," I said evenly. "I funded transitional housing for veterans. I didn't run away. I ran towards something that mattered," he scoffed. "That's nice and all, but you don't know how to run Harbor Cross." "I know enough," I replied, locking eyes with him, "to know you've been skimming funds through a shell company registered under your college roommate's name." The color drained from Ryan's face. My stepmother gasped. "Ava, stop. This is family." "Was it?" I asked, my voice cracking. "When you sat there while he called me a failure? When he handed Ryan everything without once acknowledging the sacrifices I made for all of you? Was that family?" "You were never built for this world," she whispered. "No," I nodded. "You all made that clear." "But Grandma?" "She thought differently." Mr. Whitman cleared his throat. "Miss Ava, your grandmother didn't just leave you shares. She left something else, something to be given only at this exact moment." He opened his briefcase and pulled out a small, worn box. Inside was a gold-plated compass I hadn't seen since I was a child. Beneath it, a folded letter in her delicate script with just my name on the front. My fingers trembled as I opened it. "My dearest Ava," it read, "if you're reading this, then your father has done exactly what I feared. Don't hate him. He's the product of a world that told him power must always be loud. But you were never weak. You were the quiet strength that held us all together. This compass is yours now because no matter what path you take, I trust you to lead." Tears stung my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. I turned to Mr. Whitman. "Let's proceed." As I signed the papers officially naming me the controlling stakeholder, my father finally spoke. "You think this makes you powerful?" he said, voice low. "You think she gave you this out of love?" "She did it to spite me." I looked at him, really looked. For the first time, not as a daughter seeking approval, but as a woman who finally saw the truth. "No, I said. She did it because she believed in me. And she knew I'd use this power to build, not break." Then I walked out, shoulders squared, head high. Years of rejection slid off me like rusted chains. But peace wasn't waiting outside. War was. Because the moment power shifts, enemies emerge, and Ryan wasn't done. I'd barely reached the corridor when I heard footsteps closing in. "Ava," he called. I turned, already knowing. "You don't have to do this," he said, his voice calm but his eyes full of calculation. "Do what?" "Push me out," he shrugged. "That's your next move, right?" "I haven't made any moves," I said quietly. "I simply stood up." He chuckled bitterly. "You think signing some papers makes you powerful? You don't have the backbone to lead." My heart was pounding, but I didn't flinch. I'm not here to prove anything to you, Ryan. I'm here to lead with integrity, something this family forgot. He stepped in too close. I give you 2 months, he sneered. Before you crawl back, the company's not a charity, Ava. It's a battlefield. No, I replied, lifting my chin. It's a platform, and I'll use it to build, not destroy. You really are naive, he muttered, shaking his head and walking off. But something about the way he left, those clenched fists, the rigid shoulders, told me this wasn't over, this wasn't retreat. It was the start of his next move. The days that followed moved like thunderclouds, dark and gathering. Word spread fast. Ava Whitmore was back, but this time she wasn't visiting. She was in charge. My name floated through the halls like a ghost, whispered in elevators, muttered in meeting rooms. Some were hopeful, others afraid. I didn't fire anyone. I didn't throw grand meetings or demand applause. I listened. And what I found was worse than I expected. Departments pitted against each other, promotions handed out for loyalty, not performance. Burnout ignored, voices silenced. This wasn't a company, it was a kingdom, and Ryan had learned straight from the king. One afternoon, I walked into the break room. Conversation died instantly. Please, I said, raising a hand. You're on break. Sit. Eat. A janitor named Rosa hesitated, then slowly stood. We weren't allowed to sit if Mr. Ryan walked in. I blinked. That changes today. Her face softened. That night, I stayed late, poring over reports. What I found made my blood run cold. 3 misused budgets, a shady supplier contract, and a list of employees terminated after raising concerns. This wasn't neglect. It was deliberate. If I didn't act soon, I'd be blamed when it all collapsed. The next morning, Ryan stormed into my office, folder in hand. You want the CEO seat, he snapped. Let's see you survive this. He tossed the folder onto my desk. Inside were screenshots, emails, and photos. These are fake, I said, flipping through them. Can you prove it? He smirked, a bitter curl of his lips. You really want to destroy me? I want what's mine, he hissed. You were never meant to win. I stood slowly, steadying my voice. I don't want to win, Ryan. I want to fix what you broke. He scoffed. I see power. You see weakness? Then he turned and walked out, and in that moment, I understood. This wasn't rivalry. This was war, but I had something Ryan didn't. The truth. Within 48 hours, headlines exploded across the internet. New CEO accused in charity fraud. Family feud at Harbor Crest Holdings. Ava Whitmore, legacy leader or liability. It didn't matter that it was all fake. The public didn't wait for facts. My inbox flooded with PR warnings and my phone buzzed endlessly. Shareholders panicked. I had barely begun and already I was bleeding credibility. I kept telling myself to stay calm, to hold the line. But late one night, locked in my office with the city lights flickering through the windows, I broke. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. Just silent sobs curled into the corner of my couch. I wasn't crying because they didn't believe me. I was crying because maybe, just maybe, my father had been right. Maybe I wasn't cut out for this. Then came a soft knock. I wiped my eyes quickly, but the door creaked open anyway. Rosa stood in the doorway holding a paper cup. Thought you could use this. You didn't have to, I whispered, throat raw. You looked like you needed it, she said, stepping inside. No one ever brought me anything when I cried in this room. So maybe someone should break the cycle. Something inside me cracked again, but this time in a gentler way. Thank you, I managed. She sat down across from me, her expression calm. Miss Ava, she said softly. Do you want to know the truth about your family? I looked up, unsure. I've worked here 28 years, she continued. Seen more than most. Seen what they hide. But you always looked me in the eye. My throat tightened again. You might feel alone now, Rosa said, her voice like warm cloth on an open wound. But you've got something they'll never have. Loyalty earned through kindness. I blinked, trying to steady myself. Why are you helping me? I asked. Because someone once helped me when no one else did, she said, smiling. And because this company doesn't need another king. It needs a healer. The next morning, I walked into the boardroom with quiet resolve. They were already gathered, waiting. I let them speak first. Accusations, doubts, even threats of legal action. One shareholder outright demanded my resignation. When they were finished, I stood. If anyone here can prove those documents are real, I said clearly, voice ringing through the room, I'll step down today. Silence. Then I placed a stack of folders on the table. Original reports, time-stamped emails, bank transfers. Proof of Ryan's financial misconduct, hush money, shady supplier deals. And then I turned on the projector. Footage appeared of Ryan entering a locked office, plugging in a USB drive, transferring files. The timestamp matched the exact moment the forged documents had been created. No one said a word. Truth matters, I said quietly. But I didn't come here to destroy my brother. I came to repair what he broke. I turned to the company attorney. My grandmother didn't give me this role because I was perfect. She gave it to me because I still believe in people, even the ones who've hurt me. I'm not pressing charges, but Ryan is suspended. A full investigation will proceed. Stunned expressions all around. Then Mr. Halpern, a retired board member, stood. I doubted you, he said, his voice hoarse. Thought you were just another idealist. But today, you reminded me why we built this company. It was always supposed to be about people, not power. And just like that, the energy in the room shifted. Ryan didn't come back, but 2 days later, I received a letter. Handwritten. His handwriting. Ava, I don't expect forgiveness. I didn't just want control, I wanted to be seen. I always thought you got the love I never did. Maybe you just earned it differently, I thought, folding the letter and placing it beside my grandmother's compass. Not every ending needs a sword. Some arrive in stillness, and some beginnings are born from grace. The office felt different now. Not quieter, but more awake. It had been a month since the boardroom turned. The media had retracted the false claims. Some tried to call it luck, but those who mattered saw the truth. Not because I shouted louder, but because I held the line with integrity. One person, though, still hadn't reached out. My father. No messages, no lawyers, nothing. I assumed he'd vanished to lick his wounds and blame the world. Until one Sunday morning, I walked into my office and there he was, sitting across from my desk, hands folded, eyes dull. I had to see it, he said. See what? That you didn't burn it down. I said nothing. He looked older now, tired. Not like a man in control, but like someone who had finally admitted he'd lost something that mattered. You were right, he said quietly. About me, about Ryan, about how this place stopped being about people. I studied him, unsure if I could believe it yet. Why now? He pulled something from his coat pocket. A photo. Me and Grandma. I was 12, covered in paint, and she was laughing. She said you'd change this family, he whispered. I just didn't want to believe it. If I did, I said gently, it's because she believed in me. He nodded slowly. I came to say something. Something I should have said a long time ago. He met my eyes. I'm sorry, Ava, for everything. Part of me wanted to say it was too late, but healing doesn't start with blame. It starts when someone finally breaks the cycle. So I nodded. Thank you. I just needed to say it before I ran out of time, he said. Then don't, I replied softly. Fix what you can. It's not too late. He didn't respond, just gave me one last quiet look before slipping out the door. 2 weeks later, Rosa stepped into my office with a folder. What's this? I asked. A list of every employee your father let go for speaking up, she said gently. Figured you'd want to see it. I opened the file, read every name. And then we sent out letters, each one an invitation to return. No questions asked. Not because I needed redemption, but because legacy isn't built on bloodlines. Well, it's built on how you make people feel when you leave the room. Months passed. The company didn't look flashier, it looked warmer. Ryan never returned, but we met once for coffee. No apologies. No digging up the past. Just two siblings trying to understand each other. Maybe that was enough. My father kept his distance, but one day I received a receipt, a 7-figure donation made in my name, to the women's shelter where I once worked. No note, no signature, just his quiet way of saying he was trying. And that was enough, because I didn't get revenge. I got something stronger, respect, peace, a future no one could take away. Now, when I walk into that boardroom, I don't hear whispers. I hear footsteps of people who believe in me. All because one day someone said I was nothing, and I proved them wrong without becoming them. Oh, if my story moved something in you, drop a comment below. Tell me what part hit hardest. Tell me what you would have done. I read every word because connection is what this journey has always been about. And if you're facing your own version of being underestimated, know this. You don't have to shout to be heard. You just have to stand steady in your truth. Subscribe to the channel if you believe in healing through strength and strength through kindness. Because sometimes the quietest ones carry the loudest legacies.